is Rebekah and
Isaac
from Teshuva Ministries, and today we have a very special show for you. We have gotten the opportunity to do an interview with the author of two books, The Covenants of Promise and the Back to, so you can see that, the Back to the Melchizedek Future book. So we are going to do an interview with Dr. David Perry. He is the one who Yehovah has chose to download the understanding of the Melchizedek priesthood and the change that occurred when Israel broke the contract at the golden calf. So our lives have been completely changed by his work. We actually, as you'll see in the interview, we met David in 2009, I think. As we were actually moving out into the woods, we were losing our home and moving out into a teepee. We met him right before it. I had actually been studying and saw this covenant, but I didn't have words for it back then. So beautiful that Yehovah brought David to our couch, basically, one evening, and he revealed to me what I was seeing, and he gave me words for it. So for that, I'm going to be super eternally thankful for his work. From there, we basically went on to work together. Something I suggested to him was I wanted to put his dissertation into a book form, and then once we did that, and that's what this is, and you'll see in the interview, but his dissertation is in here. It's a hard read, but then I begged him for a manuscript that I could understand, and that's this. And this has impacted a lot of people's lives. So we are one of the only, there's only like, even David doesn't even know if there's other Melchizedek ministries around, but there's Torah to the Tribes, who is in Oregon. Who
in the past put out some really good teachings on the topic. Obviously, we don't agree with everything, but as far as this topic goes, spot on. And then our ministry. So Dr. David Perry went through a stroke back a long time ago. And so he's been in recovery. He's been inaccessible at different times throughout his recovery. Yeah, for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, to us, to other people. We've had a lot of people throughout the years ask us, how Dr. David Perry is doing, and can they get a hold of him and this sort of thing. So down below in the description, you will see ways to get a hold of him, as well as other things there for you to check out. But you're going to see an interview today that we were privileged to do. I'm going to warn you, he's a crusty old man. He's been through a lot, and he is who he is. So we are going to share that interview with you now, and hope you enjoy seeing the man behind the book. All right, David, we have not talked to you for a long time, have we? I think we saw you in 2015. That was the last time we saw you, when we came down. Yeah, we came down to Loma Linda, and you took us out for a meal.
5 years ago, huh?
Yeah, if not, probably 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. It's been a long time. So let's open this with prayer, and then I will introduce everyone to our guest today. So Yehovah Elohim, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I just want you to know that we're here together with Dr. David Perry to talk about your priesthood and the priesthood that you have given to Yeshua, your son. We are so excited here to be with David, and we also know that this is very set against, so we ask for your protection on David and his family, as well as our family, today as we talk through this. And for the consecutive days and weeks that come after, we just want all attacks from Hasatan to be blocked by you and your good kingdom and your angels of mighty strength. So please cover us with the blood of Yeshua and put his blood between us and all things that are set against this beautiful message and this beautiful truth. Yehovah, we love you with all our hearts, and we're here to serve you. We're here to serve in Yeshua's priesthood that you have given him. So thank you very much for all you have done for us, and thank you for getting David and us together after all these years. Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
All right, David. So we have some questions for you. I know that our audience is going to absolutely flip out over the fact that we have you and we're doing an interview with you, because most people in our audience have bought your books. A lot of people in our audience. And if you're listening right now and you haven't bought these books, you are going to be wanting to buy these books after this interview. But this is David's book, Back to the Melchizedek Future, and his Covenants of Promise. We're going to talk about these books here in a little bit. But first of all, our audience has asked us over and over the course of the years where you've been and what has happened to you. So please tell us your story. What happened?
Well,
we'll get into how you and us met and everything later. But first, tell us what happened.
Well, my wife is Swedish, and in 2015, I was on the plane back from Sweden to the United States.
Whoa.
And that was the same year that Carrie Fisher died. And she died basically in the same type of situation. She had just come over on a plane back to the United States. Well, I did the same thing, but Yahweh was favorable to me, because all I got out of it was a stroke. But still, all I got out of it was I can't use my left side. I can't. I don't have any peripheral vision in my left eye.
Okay.
My eyes don't track well together. I can't even read a Bible. The only way I can read a Bible is with a computer and copy a Bible and just blow up the font so big that like a 20-point font to be able to see it.
Wow. So what? So you were on a plane, but you had a stroke when you were on the plane or when you got home?
Well, it was after I got home, and we were out walking the dogs, and all of a sudden, something happened. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But the wife, she's a physical therapist, and so she saw the left side of my mouth drooping. So she pretty much knew what was going on.
Oh, right.
Wow. Isaac is going to actually introduce you to our audience in case our audience doesn't know who you are. He's going to actually just read your bio, your intro, right at the beginning of your book. There is about the author. So he's going to read for our audience to know who you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, most of our audience knows the books, or at least is familiar with the Melchizedek Priesthood. Some of our audience has seen something special in Exodus 19 through 24 and have yet to get the book. But this is the man, Dr. David Perry.
Yes.
Th.D. He graduated with his doctorate in theology in 2008 from the Center for Biblical Research.
Yep.
Yes,
down in California.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Center for the Study of Biblical Research.
Cool.
Center for the Study of Biblical Research, Redlands, California.
Yeah.
Which is affiliated with the Jerusalem School, the Synoptic Gospel Society, and the Dead Sea Scroll Foundation. And his doctoral dissertation was on the biblical proofs of distinctions between the covenants.
Great. That is amazing. Go ahead, keep reading.
Yeah, I mean, that's the amazing subject matter that ended up in the first book. Raised in the Nazarene Church, David found Yah's seventh-day Sabbath in appointed times. And then after agreeing that the Ten Commandments still stand, he then discovered the Book of the Covenant in Exodus 24:7. And at the time of this writing, he had been studying those issues in detail for over a decade. By this point, we must be looking at around
2 decades.
20 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 20 years. So Isaac and I were on a walk this morning talking about this interview, and we're going to talk about these books and talk about your dissertation a little bit and how we met and everything. But one thing that we realized that we don't know, David, is we know a lot of your story, but we don't know this part. How did you begin to talk? How did you begin to think about there's 2 books? Why did you go there? Why did you do your dissertation on that? Why did you spend 20 years?
Well, I'm going to have to take you back to 1996.
Good. Take us back.
I was in. I had bought 80 acres, just northeast of Sholo, Arizona. So I was in the White Mountains.
Okay.
And I was reading some literature from the Worldwide Church of God. You know yeah, and they keep the Sabbath, but they also kept the feasts and everything. And I had been reading this and I'm starting to make some realizations and put some things together. And I remember putting the book down and basically looking up to, I stepped outside and looked up to the stars and everything. And I said, well, I didn't know to call him anything else. So I said, Mr. God, yeah, if this is true, I need to know your truth, but I want to know your truth without the crap. And I said it just that way. And, because I had the idea, and I still have the idea that, Yehovah wants you to be honest. He already knows what you think. Right. So there's no room to try to hide something. So I wasn't trying to hide nothing. And I just wanted to know the truth, right, regardless of any man's relationship to me. That was my father and everything. I can remember when I was just a little kid, and we'd gone to the Sunday Nazarene church, and the preacher was talking about the Sabbath. Ooh. Well, I can remember coming back to our house in La Puente and being outside and asking my dad, well, what about the Sabbath? What are you talking about the Sabbath? What is that? And he said, he started to give me the whole Sunday Catholic rundown about how Christ died and was rose again on Sunday, and that's why we changed everything. Well, wait a minute. Where does it ever say that?
Right.
Yeah.
So
it seems like it's a lot to ask of a lot of people, is to actually face the truth.
Right.
Especially when it comes to reconciling Scripture. Yeah. So you understood the seventh-day Sabbath. When did you first see this special thing in Exodus 19 through 24, or this 2 books?
I see. Well, yeah, okay, and back to jumping to 96. Yeah. I had come back to the house here in where I live in Southern California, and I can remember distinctly looking up to the lamp, and because I had gotten this impression that I was to read the Bible. Well, I disregarded that for a long time because I was reading the Bible left and right. What is this read the Bible stuff? But it wasn't just read the Bible. It was read the Bible with a notebook.
Oh.
And that impression wouldn't come back as often, but when it did, it was stronger. And I remember looking up at the lamp and saying, okay, I'll do it. And when I did, well, I was in for the roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that I came across Well, I was reading the New Testament, and I was writing down everything that said about in the New Testament. Well, when I got done with that, about 10 months later, I decided that I'd never read the Old Testament before, and so I wanted to do that, but I did not want to be sucked in like that before and give up 10 months of my life, and I just didn't want to do that. But I started in, and now I've had like 10, 20 years now.
20 years.
Right.
Yeah. But basically, I came across in Exodus where it talked about the Book of the Covenant.
Right.
And I said, what the heck is this? I've been in church all my life, and I've never heard anything about it. No, not a preacher said anything about it.
No.
Oh man, it was just they didn't, I kept asking about it. They didn't know where it was or what it said, or in my own research, I started realizing that the Book of the Covenant started in Exodus 19, 5 and 6.
Right.
Because that's where Yahweh said, if you will heed my voice and keep my covenant, I will make of you a nation of priests and a holy nation.
Yeah.
Well, what priesthood was that?
Right.
It sure wasn't the Levitical priesthood.
Right.
The Levitical priesthood didn't come on the scene until after they broke the covenant.
Right. Exactly.
So we have to realize that when he says, if you will keep my covenant, that's a proviso.
Yeah.
That they did not keep.
Right.
So therefore, they were kicked out of that Melchizedek priesthood and thrown to a Levitical priesthood.
Right.
There's a huge difference between being a nation of priests and a nation with priests.
Right. And there's
huge difference.
There's a huge this is about dividing the word of truth properly. So
absolutely.
You talk about that a lot in your book. You make an incredibly good case for dividing the word of truth. Rightly dividing the word of truth. So we go to the Torah, we go to the scriptures, and you see this in here, but you have to rightly divide and rightly understand what he's talking about and what actually happened. The story of what happened captured my heart. So I have to just say that maybe we'll just move into this. In 2000, you graduated in 2008, I think it was. Yes. Okay, so in 2008 is when we came out of Christianity, and you ended up in our house on our couch in, I think it was 2009. I want to say. I think it was 2009.
Yeah, I had been asked to come up and give a teaching in
Sandpoint area.
The Sandpoint area, or Naples, or Idaho.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly who the person was that knew you and knew me, but anyway, they put us together.
Yeah, I think you had given your talk up there in Sandpoint, and you didn't get the response that you were hoping for. And this is a story that I remember. And so you ended up coming down to our house. We had an upstairs that we built for. It was called the upper room. It was its own contained apartment that we'd have people stay in, and we had to let you stay in it and took you to the airport the next day. But that evening it changed my life, Dave. And I
remember it was you that said, I always knew there was more.
Right. Well,
you remember saying that?
Yes. Well, what happened was, Dave, I had been reading the scriptures when we came out of Christianity. It's like I had to start over again. I had to get the Christian tapes out of my head when I read. I had to set this down for a little bit because I had Seventh-day Adventist interpretation of this whole entire book. And so before you got to our house, Yehovah had me start reading again. And I started in Genesis 1 and I started reading and I got to Exodus 19 and I saw something happen. And I was like, something big was going on. And then I got all the way through and I saw the blessings and I went, I want those blessings. I'm like, wait a minute. He said, if I obey this, then I get these blessings. And so in Exodus 24, I saw something happen. Something was done. And I saw the covenant. I saw that right there. But I did not have words for it until you sat down on our couch. And I said to you, I saw that. I saw this. I pointed it out to you. And you named it. You said, this is the Melchizedek Covenant. This is the Melchizedek Priesthood. And it blew me away. You gave me words for what I saw. And I know that this book has given a lot of people words for what they have seen in there as well.
Well, I was actually called by a gal named Charlotte that lives in Canada, and she credited me for actually saving a guy's life who was going to commit suicide, who decided to read my book and then realized that there was much more to the situation than he'd been told.
Yes, right.
And,
that's amazing. That's praise Yah. Here's another thing, David, that has over the course of the years with, we'll get back to our story and how we ended up working together here, but the idea that Ron Wyatt, who has found the Ark of the Covenant, found when he went in there the second or third time when everything was cleaned up, he got in there where the Ark of the Covenant is, which is under Mount Moriah. It's in the garden. It's right underneath the ground right there where he was crucified in the Garden Tomb area, where we've been there in 2017. We went to Israel and saw this, and we were standing right over the Ark of the Covenant. And he said, which he doesn't recognize this, but he walked in there and he saw a book that was on the outside. It was in a pocket on the outside of the Ark of the Covenant. And he pulled the book out and he looked at it and he said Genesis was missing. And he said that he thought robbers came in and took Genesis out. And I'm like, no, they didn't do that. All the gold around there, they would have taken that. Who cares about one book in the Torah? No, that was the book of the law that was put on the outside of the ark as the witness against us. He actually saw it. And it's blown me away how it clarifies so much. It really clarifies what was in the ark, as you state in your book, as well as in the scriptures. What's in the ark is the testimony of Yehovah. That's the covenant on tablets of stone that's in the ark. We don't want that to go away. That would be a really bad thing. But what's on the outside is that witness against Israel that they broke what was inside at the golden calf incident, like you say.
Well, that same occasion when I was up there to give that teaching, there were some people that listened to me and they came back saying different things like, it's like reading the Bible new again. It's like I have spectacles. It's like I have a new pair of glasses.
Yeah, it is. It's put into perspective. Everything, our job, what we're supposed to be about.
Yeah, and it's brought resolution with the New Testament, especially with Paul's writings, which was the focus of your study of the covenants.
Yeah.
In the covenants of promise. I mean, that resolution has been huge.
Yeah, I mean,
well, to make those connections. So
Hebrews is.
Thank you.
Yes, Hebrews is all about unpacking that priesthood change.
Hebrews 5 is huge.
I know.
That's going to be my new jumping off point, because that directly speaks of the Melchizedek.
Yeah, let's look at this. Hebrews, where is it? There's so much like
Hebrews 5:8 is where I can point to. You know, everybody asks why, and I've even done that. I've had 2 strokes. Well, why? Well, now you can read 5:8 and see why. That it says that even though he was a son, yet he learned obedience through what he suffered. And when I saw that, it was like, bingo, that's it. Yeah. I'm supposed supposed to learn the same obedience to what I suffer. That is the Melchizedek way.
Yeah. And he was designated by Yehovah to be a priest in the order of Melchizedek. Like this whole, Hebrews, the Messianic movement right now really wants to throw Hebrews out because they don't know what to do with it, because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit what they want preached.
Those Levi forever folks are totally out to lunch.
I know. Why do you think that Christians don't understand this change in priesthoods?
Well, I've been in so many pastor studies pitching this that I can't even count.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they've never seen this, so therefore they're not gonna see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called enmity to the law. They don't want to see this change. They don't want to rightly divide the word of truth to see that, wait a minute, like you say in the book, you say, there's something that was changed. There's something was done away with and something remains. We have to figure out what it is that remains and what was done away with. And I like how you point out in the book that there's two ditches to this Melchizedek priesthood. You've got the ditch on one side is Judaism and the other side is Christianity. And, Messianic Jews would fall into this category over here. And, there's only one way. There's only one path.
Oh, that brings up something that I would love to let everybody know, and you too, is that I have started a group on the internet, and you can find it. It's called One Path Assembly. OnePathAssembly.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and
look at
because there's only one way to the truth, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? That's one way.
Right.
One Path Assembly, is the word one spelled out or the digit?
It's spelled out. It's a word.
Okay.
So then flipping to the other side, so Christians reject this because they've basically been taught enmity to the law, and they don't like to divide the word of truth properly, and they don't want to be accountable. They don't want to do anything. I also
the Sunday folks, they're gonna protect Sunday.
Yeah. I don't think I think it's one of the hardest things in the world to infiltrate a Christian church and try to get a stage so you can say anything to them. But on the other side, the Messianics, the Hebrew roots, why do you think they have rejected this or don't want to look at it? Or why
because I think they have bought into a bill of goods that the Levitical priesthood is forever. Well, you know what? I already got you. 10 ways to Sunday. Because first of all, you're going to have to introduce me to one of your forever guys. You're one of your forever guys that's still officiating in a fully functional temple.
Right.
Go ahead. Try it. It ain't going to happen.
That's part of the thing is that they are so two-faced. So the Christians are two-faced in one way. Messianics are two-faced in the other way in that they pick and choose.
Yes.
They pick and choose what they want to obey. They say, I'm Torah observant. You can't be Torah observant.
We've got to realize that there is one way. There's a right side of the ditch and the left side of the ditch. There's a Christian side and a rabbinic side.
Right. There's I keep telling people all the time that you can't you can't say you're Torah observant. If you're Torah observant, you would be keeping all the laws in the Torah completely, all of them, the Levitical laws. You need a sacrificial system. You need animal sacrifice. You need a Levitical priesthood. You need a temple.
Here's the other thing, I just learned this. Deuteronomy 18:15 through 21. Is basically the second Shema of Torah. We all know what the first one is, Deuteronomy 6:4, right?
Right.
Okay, the second one is not that popularly known. It's 18, chapter 18, verses 15 through 21.
What I want to go back to, what I do tell people is you can be Brit Torah observant. So you keep the law within the covenant. Yes, you can call yourself a Brit Torah observant, because Brit means covenant, right? And I love the fact how you point out those are, and Matthew Nolan does this too, how you point out there's two totally different words there. If Yehovah wanted to use the same word, he could have, but he's the book of the covenant and the book of the law, two totally different words. And if our audience doesn't know anything what we're talking about right now, we're talking about the change in priesthoods. We're talking about what Yeshua enacted at his death. And we're talking about the death position he took.
And the Torah only folks need to realize and read Genesis 49.
49:10.
49:10. There.
Yep.
That's the proviso, and it's always been in your Bible.
Right.
And I've not seen your Bible, so
I think that until clause, so until Shiloh comes, something was going to happen. There's that until clause in Genesis 49:10 that we need to learn we need to decipher what does that mean and what happened.
There's so many provisos in the Bible, even in the book of the covenant. If you will heed my voice and keep my command, if is a proviso.
If. Yeah, and I like how you point out too, and something we teach as well at Teshuvah Ministries is that Israel, when they were at the base of Mount Sinai there in Exodus 19, they knew nothing about a Levitical priesthood at that point. All they knew was Melchizedek. They were familiar with that, but they were not familiar with Levitical priesthood because it didn't even exist until the golden calf incident. And on that day, when Yehovah gave Levi the temporary priesthood, the imposed law with its temporary priesthood, they were blessed. It says, the scripture says they were blessed that day after they slaughtered 3,000 people, the friends and family who had worshiped the golden calf. They were blessed. They got the priesthood on that day. Your Covenants of Promise is your dissertation. I have to say, this is a very hard read. In 2009, when you showed up at our house, when you were giving me words for what I had seen, I was so impacted. I said, and you handed me a CD. Remember that? You said, here's my dissertation on CD. And I looked at you as a graphic designer. I'm a graphic designer and I'm an author and I'm a publisher and all that stuff. And I looked at you and I said, David, no one's going to read a CD. And then you and I decided that we would get your information on the CD into book form.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So I remember when we came out with this. This is pretty much word for word your own dissertation. It's a very hard read. It's thick, but if you want something to chew on, here you go. But I remember, David, begging you over the course of time for a smaller version, something that a lay person could understand. And you gave me a manuscript to publish. And that's what happened. That's where this book comes from. It's a Back to the Melchizedek Future. This book is something that Isaac and I edited for you. And we were very, very careful with how we edited it and made sure, because we feel like we were on holy ground. I really do. The Melchizedek priesthood is eternal, and it's Yeshua's now. And I feel like it's holy ground. So I've always touched it very gingerly and carefully.
Yeah, and it's been recently that I've actually heard this on the radio. If your pursuit does not have an eternal impact, what's the point?
What's the point? Exactly. Why even? Yeah, right. Because it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket. So
yeah, go to hell in a Chinese handbasket.
Right. If you just give your life away to doing nothing, then fine. But I have an eternal. I want eternal reward.
I got a question for you, David. So we thought that this Melchizedek movement, this truth, was going to just blow wide open. We thought this would be the connection point with Christians. And we thought this would resolve the picking and choosing problem that Messianics were having. And we thought this thing was just going to blow wide open and take off. What were did you think this was going to just be huge? And how's it turned out?
Hoping to be huge.
Yeah. Maybe the day's still coming. What do you see?
Well, I want to push this Melchizedek knowledge from here to the moon. I want to push it over the top, and I want to give them no recourse.
Yeah, we have tried. We have dedicated our lives since we met you, since we did these books together with you, David. We have dedicated our life to trying to get the word out there in a way that people will respond well to. So, I mean, literally, I work, 10, 15, 16-hour days trying to figure out how to approach this topic and get it into ways that everyone would understand and that the Ruach HaKodesh could work on people's hearts so that they would accept it. Because it's not just about what you know, it's about what you do, right? So I feel like it affects what you do, right? Because if you don't believe in this, what's going to happen? You're going to go down the Messianic road, and then what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're going to
and that's the point. We're supposed to be on a straight and narrow, neither turning to the right nor to the left.
Right.
We have to understand that there's a Christian ditch on one side and a rabbinic ditch on the other.
Right. I'm going to go back for just a second to one reason I think that the Messianic crowd rejects this. And number one, it doesn't come with a dress code, and it challenges their power. Because the hierarchy, because in Yeshua's Melchizedek priesthood, we are all priests. There's not a rabbi over us except Yeshua, right? There's one rabbi. Yeah. And in the Messianic world, they call each other rabbis all the time. They've got their pastors are rabbis, and they say this, and it's so wrong. They also wear, they wear the tallit. That is straight out of Rome. They wear the fringes, or not the fringes, just they don't wear it like they used to wear it, like the real fringes that Yah commanded, but they wear the tzitzits on their belt loops. And I'm blown away with this, because it means that they have not accepted the work of Yeshua. If they had, they would understand Colossians, and how Colossians says that something that was set against us was nailed to the cross. But I love how you talk about something that you talk about in your book, was that you thought it would be a poetic thing if somebody went into the water with tzitzits on and then come out and have them cut off, because even an Orthodox Jew, you say, knows that you're not under the law when you're dead, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what happens to a Jewish man when he dies.
Right.
The tzitzits are cut off.
Right. That's because they know they're not under the law when they are dead. And when you mikvah, the whole idea is to go into Yeshua's death with him.
Absolutely.
And get set free of that imposed law.
That's the picture.
And then you come up on the other side with a light burden, and the light burden is the Melchizedek Covenant. So
Hallelujah.
I can't tell you how beautiful the revelation of this priesthood has been in our lives. We never went through the Messianic Hebrew roots garbage. We went straight from Christianity into this view and saw it for ourselves, and then you gave us words for it. And I can't thank you enough, David, for what you did when you obeyed, and he gave you this. Yehovah, I believe, picked you to download this to, and now, there's a few. Who do you know? Who else do you know who's teaching this, by the way, besides us and Matthew Nolan? Who else?
Well, as directly as we do, I don't really know of anybody.
Okay.
But there are some ones that are skirting around, and there's one guy. He's Triumph in Truth.
Yes.
G. Stephen Simons.
Yes.
G. Stephen Simons.
Yep.
Oh,
He's real close, and I've tried to contact him, and he will not respond.
Yeah, I know he's pretty. I love a lot of his stuff, but he is definitely Levitical, and so is Rude Awakening, unfortunately. But I feel like Michael Rood is close to understanding it, but not fully. I'm really sad that Jim Staley doesn't. He rejected it. Super sad about that.
Yeah. I can't hardly believe that.
I know, it's pretty sad. And but Matthew Nolan
went to the wall for it.
He went to the wall for that,
and we really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, his rebuttal was amazing. We don't believe everything Matthew Nolan teaches, or a lot of different things.
Well,
but
I understand.
Yeah, as far as the priesthood goes and the Melchizedek, he's got it. He's nailed it. Yeah.
You've got to reserve the right to think for yourself.
Right, exactly.
with any man's teaching.
That's right. That's right. None of us are Yeshua, right? None of us are. We're not the head, right? We're just helping him.
Since you put your studies into book form, can you think of any revelations or insights you've had since then that our viewers should know about?
Well, the person that I'm thinking of is he's been my go-to guy for almost 10 years or more, 10, 15 years or more. The guy's name is Daniel Wright. Have you ever heard of him?
No. I'm writing him down.
Daniel Wright is and his wife Carol.
Okay.
Go around different places, and he's really hard to get a hold of. Mm-hmm. He is very particular about who he'll speak with, and so I feel pretty blessed.
Okay.
But, what I would do, and I have called him and asked him what I could say, and this is what he'll allow, is that if your viewers or you want to ask Daniel Wright something, you can send it to me.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. My email is all small font. It's THD, Tom Harry David, Perry, PERRY,
yeah,
at gmail.com. And you can send your questions and stuff to me, and either I will answer it or I will forward it to Daniel.
Okay.
And then I'll get back to you.
Okay. Well, on that note, we asked our audience if they had any questions for you. So I have just a couple. Rick and Tina asked, who do you think Melchizedek is in Genesis?
Well, the person that we see in Genesis 14 is probably Noah's son Shem.
That's what we believe too. Yeah.
Yes, and Daniel Wright does too.
Cool. And that's basically because we view, and let me make sure we're on the same page with this, I'm pretty sure we are, that we view it as the Melchizedek priesthood was passed down from firstborn to firstborn idea. Yeah. And then when they get to Mount Sinai, now he's changed tactics, and now he's going to have a whole nation of priests be his firstborn.
The firstborn was going to be priests. Right. But that was going to be all 12 tribes originally. Yeah. But then they broke the covenant, and so there was only the Levites that were installed as priests.
Imposed.
There's a huge difference between being a nation of priests and a nation with priests.
Yeah, that's a huge distinction.
I hope you can wrap your brain around that.
So one of the things that, before we go on to the next question, the things that make a covenant of promise, David, there's 5 things, correct? The things that we find in the scripture, there's what? 2 covenants in the scripture that are covenants of promise. Is that correct?
Well,
you have the first one, and then you have the final one with Yeshua, right?
Basically, yeah.
So you have, and the 5 things What they're like a proposal,
proposal.
acceptance,
An agreement.
and then a blood ratification,
And
then a covenant confirming meal, and then
And
a
you know what?
direct link to Abraham's covenant.
Absolutely. And you know what? We have been duped so far that we don't even recognize that is basically the formula for our own marriages.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Is I see three. I see the first one at the base of Mount Sinai, the one that they broke, but then we see it renewed through Yeshua, because Yeshua, he knocks on our door, and then we open the door, we accept, and then there's the blood ratification with his blood on the ark, and then there's the covenant confirming meal, the Lord's Supper, basically, and then there's a direct link to Abraham's covenant there, because he's the one that stepped through.
And this one, I hope people can wrap. But the marriage supper of the Lamb.
Yes,
The
another
marriage
one.
supper of the Lamb. Shazam! That's a covenant confirming meal.
Yes, it's beautiful.
There it is.
Very cool. Yes. And like you said, marriage, the same sort of thing. I mean, when we get wed, it's the same thing. Proposal, acceptance, blood ratification if you're a virgin, and then the covenant confirming meal with your families coming together. And
when you throw cake at each other.
No, that's
and there's so many things that that needs to be said about that, because there's a dedicated phrasing in the Bible.
yeah.
Like when the word voice, if you will heed my voice,
Right.
okay, my sheep hear my voice,
Right.
right? If any man, Revelations 3:12, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice,
Right.
right?
Right.
I will come in and sup with him. That's the covenant confirming meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another question from one of our audience.
From Tanya and Caden. Tanya and Caden have a question for you.
Yeah, they say, who are the priests mentioned in Exodus 19:22, and where did they come from?
We're going to have to go back to Exodus 18.
Okay.
Yes. That's where, I forget his name.
Let's see. We're looking.
Yeah, Jethro.
Jethro.
Yeah, Jethro.
Right.
That's where Jethro,
He helps Moses there.
yeah, Moses, and he says that he should make the priests or messengers from
Judges.
every tribe of tens, of fifties, of hundreds, and basically
What's it say?
Yeah, select capable men from all the people who fear Elohim, who are trustworthy, and appoint them as, this version says, officials, as you were saying.
Be the priests.
Okay, well, this might be up there for some, but we have to understand that the priesthood that Jethro was part of was the Melchizedek priesthood.
I've always thought that.
That's right.
There can be no other.
I was thinking that too. Actually, yeah, believe that as well. We had a couple of people who asked us to basically ask you to rebut this belief. I'm going to ask you to rebut it because there's people out there teaching that the Melchizedek Shem, who we believe is Shem, was actually a pagan Canaanite god. And so I'm blown away by people who say this, because you just have to keep reading, and I don't understand how they can't determine that this isn't even on the table. But
I don't know how many people have actually read the book of Jasher.
Yeah.
But Jasher points out that it was Shem.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
So
yeah,
the question seems to me as completely extra biblical.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before? That either Melchizedek was the name of a Canaanite god or that he was serving.
Well, let me
Canaanite
tell
god.
you something. There is no such thing as a Mr. Melchizedek.
That's what you
We have to understand that Melchizedek speaks of a priesthood.
Right.
And
Priesthood forever.
that Melchizedek is a conjunction of two Hebrew words. Melech means king, Zadok means righteousness.
Right.
So it either means my king is righteous or king of the righteous.
Right. Right.
Right. It's a title, not a
Right.
proper name.
And I think when you look at this story here, when the Melchizedek Hashem shows up to Abraham, one of the things in it that is super cool to help understand that this is not a pagan god here is that Abraham actually specifically tells the king of Sodom, who has got names Yehovah. He actually names him. But when he's talking to this Melchizedek priest, he doesn't have to name him. He doesn't name him. He says Elohim. And it's because him and the priest are on the same, they understand who they're talking about. They understand they're both talking about Yehovah. But when he's talking to the king of Sodom, he's got to make it clear who he's talking
And if
about.
Daniel Wright is correct, that Abraham grew up in that same household with Melchizedek, because Shem would have been one of his uncles.
Yeah, it would have been. It was. They were contemporaries. Noah, Shem, Abraham. They were contemporaries. I love the story of Abraham unpacked in Jasher. Super cool.
Since you wrote the books, has there been? Can you recall if anything has come up that you really wish had been in there?
Like new revelations or something, anything like that?
Well, certainly, and I'd have to think about. Excuse me.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing okay?
Yeah, fairly well.
Okay.
The some of the things that I've realized have come from speaking with Daniel Wright. And one of the things that I think is huge is that Melchizedek is part of the whole Sunday school story we've always heard, right?
Mhm.
Oh, Jacob and Esau. Well, guess what? When Yah says, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated, haven't you ever wondered about that?
Great.
Okay. Well, when you start putting your head around the fact that Esau scorned his Melchizedek birthright for a bowl of beans,
Right.
then you start understanding why Yah would be so angry at him.
Right.
So the calling to be a Melchizedek priest and join the priesthood is not something to take lightly.
Well, it went from father to firstborn son. Esau was that firstborn son,
Right.
but it always went to the firstborn son unless the firstborn did something to nullify his eligibility, and
Right.
that's exactly what Esau did.
Right. Yeshua himself said that he came for the lost sheep of Israel. That's what he said. He said, I came only for the lost sheep of Israel. And those lost sheep are the scattered. I wanted to ask you why you think this is so important for people to understand, especially as there's this real big, like a lot of people are coming out right now. A lot of people are like finding out about the Torah and stuff. But why do you think it's so important?
To my way of thinking, the Melchizedek understanding of the Melchizedek priesthood is the last frontier.
Yes, it's awesome. Like back to
It's what Revelation talks about. He has made us kings and priests. How can that ever happen unless it was under the Melchizedek priesthood?
Right. There's no such thing in the Levitical stuff. As you talk about in your book, and point out, and you read the scriptures and you can see it, the Levitical law was never, it was never proposed. It was never agreed to. There was no blood ratification or anything. It was imposed on lieu of a complete annihilation. So they were going to be completely annihilated because they broke.
Yeah, that's what. That it was great and glorious. Yeah, it's a much more glorious to be spared from complete annihilation. Yeah. It still was a hobbled state. Even what was it? I think it's Ephesians 20:25. It talks about how Yah gave them, laws and statutes where they could not live.
Right. Exactly.
Head around that one.
Remember what you're thinking, because right there, I was just going to say, when you wear the tzitzits, as far as what Matthew Nolan said, if you wear the tzitzits the way that Yehovah told you to wear them, there would have been stuff all over you and getting in your way of everything. It would have been a constant reminder that you'd broken. It would have been awful. If you were to wear tzitzits the way that you're supposed to wear them, you would have it everywhere. Not this, messianic Judaism nonsense where you have a little string with, it's.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, and a few knots. Yeah. Yeah, the strings and the knots are so important.
I've had so many people come to me and tell me that there's no way that I can remember how to keep the law without them. And I look at them and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? There is called the New Covenant. Hello?
Well, wait a minute.
Written on my heart.
Yeshua himself said at John 14:26. Everybody can remember John 14:6, right? Yep. I am the way, the truth, and life. No man come to the Father but through me. Right. Well, how about 14:26?
Yeah.
When I go to my Father, I will send the set-apart Spirit, and it is He that will bring all things to your remembrance.
Absolutely.
Shazam! There it is.
It's like, it doesn't make any. Okay, go ahead.
No, they say, I have to wear the tzitzit so I remember not to stop off at the bar on the way home from work.
Like, that's restoration. That's what Yeshua came to do for us? I don't think so. He came to give us a new heart with the law written on our heart, the Melchizedek law, the royal law of love written on our heart, with the Ruach HaKodesh living in us to move us to keep his ways. It's beautiful. So I don't know if you remember, David, but back in the day when we were editing your book, we started our own book. We had some other insights we wanted to share with everyone. I remember it was called, it still is going to be called The Legal Bride. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Well, vaguely, yeah.
Vaguely. So at some point, we're going to come out with our own book to help this whole movement take off. But one of the things that isn't going to be in our book, and something that we've noticed, is that, if you look at the Melchizedek priesthood and the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, it's eternal. It's absolutely eternal. It's always been and always will be. And so when somebody says, "Oh, I'm a Melchizedek priest,"
that's why I can say with all confidence that the Melchizedek priesthood is the last frontier.
Yes. And something that I believe, after watching people come into this understanding and operate in it, that the priesthood doesn't change. The priesthood is continual. It's eternal. But we, as mortals, we either operate in it or we don't. With each choice we make, we are operating as a Melchizedek priest in the Melchizedek priesthood, or we're not. And so that for me, I think that's beautiful, because then that continues whether I am operating in it today or not. Like, I can't call myself 100% of the time that I make all the right decisions and I operate in a perfect manner. That would be a good reflection of that priesthood. But a lot of times I can. And so I'm operating in it, or I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So it's a constant challenge to operate in it more and more and more and more. It's eternal. It's outside of us. We either get to operate in it or not. And Yeshua has given us the tools by which to operate in it. Have you been on any other talk shows, or have you been able to speak to people who buy your book at all in any other form? How have you?
Well, actually, to my chagrin, no.
Oh.
I haven't been able to say anything for years. This is really something special for me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad that we could do this.
Yeah, it is for us too.
It is.
David, it was when we were learning this, we would, every time we had a question, you were there, we could call you. And
yeah.
Well, that's how I feel about Daniel Wright. He's been my go-to guy.
And I'm sure this will mean a lot to our
Yes.
viewers that have read your book or heard the message that we pass on, that we learned or got clarified from you.
Are you planning to write any more on this, or you have your website?
I have written some articles, and yes, I do plan to. I'm trying to finish up a book right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be calling it About as Subtle as a Train Wreck.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yes. About
Is that your life story?
Well, it's about as subtle as. Well, actually, it does come from an incident that I was put in the hospital because of the stroke situation, and this candy striper. I was telling her about the Bible and Melchizedek and everything, and then she came back. She came back with a bunch of her friends, a bunch of student friends, and said she wanted to interview me.
Wow.
And she was the one who told me that I needed to write a book, and that I basically gave her the title because I was in a Seventh-day Adventist church, and they were calling it the Jesus Forum, and there was this Seventh-day Adventist pastor. I couldn't believe it. Was up there, and he was just saying all these different things, basically against the Torah and against Sabbath. I couldn't believe it. A Seventh-day Adventist pastor in a Seventh-day Adventist church.
I'm
The people were saying amen and clapping and everything. Finally, I had my can full. And I stood up and I turned around. And in the spirit of Isaiah 58:1, cry aloud and spare not. I let this guy have it right between the eyes. And there was an invited pastor that was up on the panel, and he leaned over to the pastor that had invited me there, and he did say that this guy's about as subtle as a train wreck. And I was so elated when my pastor friend told me that, because he said, I told him that's exactly what I was going for.
All right. So I may name this whole show today Subtle as a Train Wreck. I wanted to show you something that I have made in my journey into this Melchizedek priesthood understanding. By the way, I just want to tell our audience that Isaac and I have our ministry. You're here on our YouTube channel if you're seeing this. So our ministry is teshuvaministries.com. And we are all about the Melchizedek priesthood and Melchizedek mindset when we celebrate feasts and when we teach, and everything is kind of contained in that, underneath that umbrella. And I have a website, or on our website, I have one page that you just keep scrolling. There are all kinds of links to things that will help you understand the Melchizedek priesthood and the change and live in it. I also have a ladies group that is for women who are repenting and learning about this Melchizedek priesthood. And
doesn't your daughter have some type of a group?
Yeah, I was just gonna say she has a Teshuva youth. So she has a youth group I have a women's group, and Isaac is launching in the next day or two his men's group.
1 Peter 2:9.
Yeah.
We are all called to the Melchizedek priesthood.
All of us, women too.
Yeah, the royal priesthood. We have all been called to the royal priesthood.
Yes.
Melech is king.
Yes.
He's talking about the king of righteousness priesthood.
Yes. Very, very, very amazing. Very high calling, holy ground for sure. And then Isaac and I are actually also hopefully going to be doing some marriage conferences, marriage retreats, to kind of help.
Absolutely. And you need to tell them that marriage is a Melchizedek covenant.
I love that. Yes, David, I'm going to show you something that I made. Right here. So you go ahead and pull it. So this is a 12-foot graph of the change of priesthood, because I wanted to be able to teach people visually Abraham and making the covenant with the two, the torch and the furnace between the pieces, the Abrahamic covenant. And then we have the nation of priests and the contract that they were making, and they broke it. And then I wanted to show you this. I chose to symbolize the temporariness of the Levitical priesthood with a bridge, a swinging bridge between the first contract and the second contract. So it's a swinging bridge, temporary.
I do have to apologize because you actually tipped me off of this years ago, but we have to understand that the Melchizedek priesthood was the premier plan A.
Yes,
that we only went to plan B because they broke the covenant.
Yeah.
Well, plan B was glorious because it was a heck of a lot better than getting
annihilated.
Yes. Yeah. but then we have to understand that when Yeshua came back, he enacted Genesis 49:10 and many things, and that was a plan C. But we need to understand that plan C was actually a return back to plan A.
Plan A, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The Melchizedek priesthood, so that the Torah would not be broken or abolished.
Right.
That the word of Yehovah would stand.
Yes. Absolutely.
That he would see through on his oath.
Yep.
Absolutely.
He made to himself, and that bridge, that temporary plan B, also allowed the presence of Yehovah to remain with Israel for that time.
Yeah.
Until Yeshua could come, and then that which was done away with was glorious, but that which remains is even more glorious.
And I like how you talk about it being an umbrella, the Melchizedek priesthood, Melchizedek, the covenant. It never went away. It was always there. And they have the little umbrella of the Levitical priesthood underneath the bigger one. So, that's another distinction. In the description below, everyone, I'm going to put links to David's books. I'm going to encourage you to not buy them on Amazon because Amazon is really bad to their authors. So we want to give David as much as you can of the royalties that is available. So I want you to buy them through Lulu. Now, David and I, we work together to create these books. So it's published through our publishing company. But you're going to bless David the most if you can go there to Lulu and buy them. So I'll put links below. I'm also going to put some links below to the products that we have for sale that help you understand the Melchizedek priesthood change. But I also have some free things for you that are on our website, like a big Prezi that'll walk you through. You can use it to teach others about this change. And it has all the scriptures in there that you need. So
David.
Yes.
So if someone is going to go buy the books and says, which one should I read? What do you say?
Well, I would start off. I imagine if you Well, back to the Melchizedek Future, pretty much lays it out.
Yeah. David, you wanted to share a poem with us before we leave? Is that correct?
Okay, that is correct. I'll need probably maybe 3 to 5 minutes or something.
That's totally fine. So we're going to listen to Dr. David Perry read a poem that he has just written, and then we will close on out. And thank all my audience for being here and watching our interview with Dr. David Perry, who wrote the Back to the Melchizedek Future book, as well as the Covenants of Promise dissertation. We wouldn't know about this at this point. We know that Yehovah and Yeshua have chosen David to kind of lay the foundation for understanding this beautiful change that is holy ground. I believe this is holy ground because this is that Yeshua came to do something. What did he come to do? He came to enact the change that was provided for in Torah in Genesis 49:10. And we see that Hebrews is all about unpacking this for us. There is a change in priesthood and there is a change in law. So we're super thankful for that. Yeah, go ahead, David. Let's hear your poem.
Okay, I'm calling this a simpleton soliloquy of my life's walk.
Okay.
Thanks, folks. Not my first beating us with face, head, neck slaps, screaming, yelling, and names swinging belts, switches, and paddles from when we were very young. These are my not-so-precious memories when that Jack Wang song is sung. Not only that, the memories flood of the time I had no choice but to taste my own blood. Then on top of all that, my Christian aided parents weren't through, for the Jesus they taught us was born a Hebrew Jew. But there are no J's in Greek, Aramaic, or Hebrew. So now what are you gonna do? He came to earth from heaven to save all from sin's second death and tell us what all of this doing was for. Like keep all 9 suggestions, 10 commandments to go and sin no more. But most excuse Satan's Catholic Sunday as the most holy thing to do. This J guy never said or did before. Now who again is supposed to save you? John 7:16 says, this Jesus said, my doctrine is not my own. He walked all days in his Father's ways. The example for us is shown. Yehoshua taught and kept Yehovah's Torah, his Father's word, and 2. Kept all his Sabbath days, his annual appointed times, even Hanukkah at John 10:22. But most churches preach every Sunday, on Easter, at Christmas, and Valentine's, with flying deer, pierced hearts, jelly bean, egg-laying, chocolate, marshmallow, candy bunnies, all pagan made-up times. We teach this to our children as truth and praise for God. We say we follow his word, but it's not there, any of it. Now this alone is highly, most very odd. Even church leaders will tell me, well, we've got to give them something. When I say, well, why not give them the truth? They'll look at me with loathing disdain, as though I had just said something highly profane, unclean, unkind, or uncouth. Messiah, Yehoshua, birth, death, resurrection, the core Bible that is true. We mix this with profane customs and praise and worship with it too. 2 Corinthians 11:14 presents a sobering theme of Satan's ministry done behind the pulpit in God's church. Like that old stuff was all changed. It's been fulfilled. No need to obey, remember, or search. Pushing fantasy grace, no law, just trust in Jesus. That's all we need to do. But Matthew 7:23 says it differently. Obeying the truth of his Torah law is on you. We're all taught a brand new gospel, all things different from the cross. But the Hebrews 4:2 Sinai gospel remains the same for them back there and now for all of us. We're all to confess all sin, living his commandments in his covenant. We all are to be Jehovah's very family under his Ephesians 2:12 commonwealth Melchizedek Covenant. Jehovah's covenant, to walk outside it is to go it on your own. Childish ignorance is of one thing, is unstudied arrogance when you're grown. Reward is what we all want while breaching Jehovah's covenant. We'll get rewarded, all right, and what the wicked are to get. So turn your heart to the covenant mediator, accept Yehoshua, Jehovah's son. Learn his covenant life, right rulings, and commandments, gaining his life before your life is done. How's that for ending?
Nice. Yay. Okay, so I've made an observation. You're a crusty old man.
Well, I guess I need to own all of that.
I think that as subtle as a train wreck works really well, but I everything you said there is like so true. So true.
Yep.
That's a nice poem.
Yep.
Okay, not nice. It's crusty and it's hardcore.
Yeah, it's like 1,000-page, 1,000-word poem.
Yeah.
Big.
But that's the job of a prophet, is it not, to call wanderers back into the protection of
Isaiah 58:1, cry aloud and spare not.
Yeah, there you go. Yeshua said to stand up on the rooftops and tell the world. It's been 7 years since we've talked to you. I'm just thrilled. So
nice to see that you're still kicking.
Nice to see you're still kicking.
Yeah.
So let's stay in touch. It's not our priesthood. It's not our priesthood, and it's up to them. It's up to the rock to move on people's hearts. But like Matthew Nolan says, something that I really appreciate that he says is that, and something that we believe too, is that somebody's going to understand this priesthood change through revelation. There are so many thick heads out there that will not accept this. And
Absolutely.
So it comes by revelation.
Why have I run into most all of them?
Yeah. And I'm sure that, if I could just say this for a sec, I think that your crustiness is in part due to the battles that you have fought.
Oh, absolutely.
This. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really brutal to speak the truth to people who don't want to hear it, and entities that don't want to hear it, and they come back. We've experienced it so much. We've had a lot of, we've got a lot of good things, but for years it was like we were getting hammered with people just being very resistant to this. So I can understand why you're a little grumpy.
Yeah, I guess I got to own part of that.
That's okay. That's okay. I thank you for your time. Would you like to pray, David?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Father Yehovah, thank you so much. Thank you for Rebekah and Isaac. Thank you for them being able to put this together. Please let these words resound in open and trusting hearts. Have the people actually do the research.
Yeah.
Open the Bible, see what it says, to actually see what they haven't been hearing in church.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the elephant in the room, and all we get is crickets.
Yep. Right.
But thank you for Isaac and Rebekah, and thank you for this venue, and thank you so much for allowing me, a dirty, rotten scoundrel, no good like me, to be able to ascertain and to rightly divide your word enough to be able to see your Melchizedek priesthood.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And please bless Isaac and Rebekah and all the venues that they put their hands to.
Thank you.
And thank you. And please watch over my family and friends, because the red guy is hot and heavy on me, and he doesn't want any of this going out in any meaningful way. So with that, thank you so very much. Thank you for your son, and help us grow together, and to be able to present this Melchizedek priesthood in a way that cannot be ignored or overturned. And we'll have to ask your blessing in your son, Yehoshua. Thank you so much, and amen.
Amen. Well, thank you, David, and God bless you and your house.
Well,
Yes,
thank you too, and blessings of shalom.
Shalom to you too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We haven't seen David for so long. It must have been
He's so
right before.
He's so grumpy.
I think it must have been the year before his stroke that we saw him.
Yeah. I actually talked to him about a week or two before his stroke, and he actually got mad at me over something. So anyway, but we won't go into that.
It's been a long road, but
It has been a long road.
And then I guess the time was right, and we've reconnected, and
You can look up there.
he agreed to go on the video so you could meet him, see him,
and give him a platform. He hasn't been able to speak his thoughts for a long time. So,
yeah, he used to travel around and make presentations, and has not been able to do that now for years.
Yeah. So this was special for him. I called him yesterday to just make sure everything was okay and check things out. He was so excited for this opportunity to speak. So
yeah, so you just talked to him on the phone a couple of times, but today was the first time we've seen him even in video for years. What was that like?
For me?
Yeah.
That was pretty wild. I think at the very end, the idea of getting hope realized is everything right now is just so brutal on the human being. Isolation, loneliness, aging, disease, all that stuff is it's just a very difficult planet to live on, and it has been for the whole entire history of it. Quite some time, but
puts folks through quite a punishment.
Yes, it does. But to have the hope of restoration, is here's the thing: is and without going into the story, which I'm not gonna share that now, but the restoration of David back with us is a big deal, and I think we have to forgive each other and just know that in the wash, Yeshua will make it all work out in the end. And I didn't think that was going to happen until after he came, but the Ruach HaKodesh has brought David and us back together for restoration prior to the king returning. And I do believe that is very important. This is a really crucial message to get out there to everyone who wants to live in a way that is, honors the work of Yeshua. And this is an important message. And I am very honored that I get to work in that and that I have Isaac with me. I mean, how amazing is that? That we both see it, we both believe it, and want to give our lives to Yeshua's priesthood to teach this side of his return. So,
yeah, you saw it before we met David, and then he came along right at the right time
yeah,
to help us put the words to it and make some connections.
right. Right.
I can't take that credit. I didn't see it. But then as it was laid out,
Yeah.
boy, that was the answer.
Yeah.
That was the key to unlock everything. And
Everything.
we've, and David helped us understand how this connects with Paul's writing in the New Testament and how it brings that all together. But then we've since discovered, how it clarifies the work of Yeshua, and it just permeates everything.
Everything. Absolutely everything.
It really does. It's really beautiful. And so it's been super amazing. It's the key.
Yeah.
Well, it's the key to staying out of the ditches. It's the key to give you this third option for something that is like actually alive, living.
Right.
And it just helps you find your place in the story.
Yeah.
And it gives you your job description, and it just goes everywhere.
Right. I think the job description is huge because we all want to know what we're supposed to be doing with our lives. And when you understand Yeshua's last command when he left, and he's like, go to them and help them do all that I have commanded to them and you to do. I mean, he said he came for the lost sheep of Israel. That's only who he came for. It was for those people who were living outside that weren't allowed back into relationship with Yah because they had committed the crimes against the covenant. And so, and they hadn't repented. So here he's making a way for them to come back to Yah. So that's huge right there. We have to go to this gathering. We have to tell them about this good news of the Melchizedek priesthood and what the work of Yeshua actually did. That to me is like this whole understanding shows me what he actually did. What did his blood actually do? Like, I never understood. Like, and people have cliches up the yin yang for that, but in technicality, what did it actually do? So this unpacks that. This is beautiful. So,
yep.
There's so much to be said about this, but in the end, it is the rock who's going to reveal it to you or not. So just want to make sure that you have the materials that we do have out already. We have a Prezi that is free for you to show others. We have the Prezi slides are actually in the Kingdom University vault. So if you want to go there and get that, there's articles in the vault as well. Kingdom University vault. I'll put links in the description below. In our store, I have the graph that I showed in the show.
There's a resource page on the website dedicated to the Melchizedek, and what's some other
there's even two articles, or one article written in Spanish and one in Portuguese. There's translated. Somebody translated it for me. You got Dr. David Perry's 2 books. We've got our book that's going to be coming. We've got support groups for men, women, and children now, as well as a marriage retreat that is not necessarily going to be all about the priesthood, but it's going to be with that mindset that you probably will be very interested in. Other than that, got a YouTube channel, about 500 videos on here. You're going to find my best teaching overall on this that I did is Shavuot Part 2. So if you want to really see me talk about the graph and whatnot and unpack it a little for you, Shavuot Part 2 is what you want to see. So go to our channel playlist called Melchizedek, and you'll see all kinds of stuff there. But stay in touch with us, get on our email list. and let's work for the King in his Melchizedek priesthood. Shalom. Bye. All right, David, I'm going to start recording. Is it okay with you that I'm recording this? I'm going to put it up on our ministry, our website, and our YouTube channel. Is that okay?
As far as I'm concerned, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.